we have a little teaching service, before the preaching. And it's been a real honor for me to been asked to do this. And so I try to prepare myself and have something to say that not just a canned sermon that you read out of a book or something, but I meditate on it all week. Then I get the scriptures together to see if I'm on track, with what I'm thinking. And it comes together after a little while. But today I want to talk to you something you probably never thought about. And for those of you who've been here so many times before, I'm a little off track with my teaching. I don't teach something that you hear every day. I don't get my sermons off the TV or nothing. I dig them out. And not that they're all fresh and new, because everybody has different revelations, and I'm sure they've all taught these things before. But I want to talk to you this morning about God using the devil. And we just can't. Hello, testing. How am I doing?
Just be patient. I'm having adjusted.
Patience, that's a virtue. I will have patience. Wait a minute, I don't want tribulation worketh patience. I don't know if I want patience or not. Coming through anywhere?
Yeah.
Well, I'm just barely making it up here.
Yeah, I had a complaint from the TV station.
Yeah.
That the audio was too hot.
Okay.
So we've had to adjust it. Dipsy adjusted it, so she's had to adjust it some more.
Well, okay. If I'm coming through, okay, fine.
Yeah.
So I want to start out by asking you why you're here. That's a good question, don't you think? Why did you come here and gather together in this building? And for that matter, you could say, why am I even here in this world? Why do I exist? And there's two things that go on in this little church that should be in every church. And under the umbrella of that, those two things are other things that fit in. So if you understand what I'm saying, God's desire for us is recognition. He wants to be recognized. Now, underneath that umbrella of recognition, we'll find the word glorify. He wants to be glorified. What does that mean? It means to make apparent. Make apparent. It means bring to the surface, to lift up, to rise above, to direct our focus. That's what it means when he wants recognition. Now, there's other things that fit under this umbrella, like, gathering together with saints, it's a good thing. But all this is underneath this umbrella of one of the things why we're here. And now the second thing, when I was thinking about this, my mind went back years and years ago to a story that I heard. This man was at work and they had a little party, and somebody gave him a big puzzle, a 1,000-piece puzzle. And it was a puzzle of the world. The nations were all named, and the population and everything's on there, very detailed. And he just laid it in the den, and he was out in the garage working, and he come back in the house for something and looked through the crack in the door, and his little 5-year-old boy was in there with that puzzle. He had it all laid out on the floor, and he kind of laughed and thinking, he'll never put that thing together, so he just let him alone. He thought, well, that'll keep him busy for a while, so he come back in about an hour, looked through that door, and that puzzle was completely together, perfect. And he couldn't believe it. He asked the little boy, how did you do that? You can't even read and write. How can you get all these pieces together like that? He said, well, Daddy, he said, when I was looking at the pieces, I seen on the backside there was a picture of a man. I saw his eye and I saw his ear. And so I put together the picture of the man. And when I got the man right, I flipped it over and the world was right. So that's the second thing we're here to do today, to get the man right. And we are told constantly in this book that it is for, well, the biggest one that comes to mind is in 2 Timothy when it says, this book is for doctrine, correction, reproof, instruction in righteousness. And the bottom line is to get the man right. So the two things we're here for, to give God recognition and to get this man right. And so we're fighting a few things. Along the way, we have to understand that God's will for us is good. Have to understand that, no matter what. And the Word backs that up so many times. Even in Genesis, you remember the story of Joseph. At the end of the story, his brothers came to see him after they had sold him into slavery and everything. But he rose to a real high place. And they came to really get him to forgive them for what they had done. And he said, what you thought for evil, God meant for good. And so you can take that and apply that to just about anything that happens in your life. Just about. The problem is us being able to see that. Now, Malachi 3 says that he said, I am the Lord, I change not. So if he said it in the Old Testament, the same God is in the New Testament. The same rules will apply to us that applied to Joseph's brothers. A lot of times people out in that world will come against you and they will mean evil. But if you keep your focus on God, he will turn it around and make good out of it. And things that you don't think could ever be good for you, when you get down to the end of the line, you'll find out that if it wasn't for that happening, you wouldn't be where you're at now. I've seen that, I heard it in so many people's testimonies. I've heard people say, boy, the best thing that ever happened to me was when I went to prison. You know, they said, if I had not been caught and went to prison, I would be dead today. And when I was in prison, a chaplain came and I gave my heart to God. The best thing that ever happened to me was being locked up to where I could hear that word. So what is painful, if God is in it, he'll bring it to good. Everything that God does has an upward progressiveness. It progresses upward. Now, of course, in Romans, you see it says, for we know that all things work together for good to them that love God and are called according to his purpose here. There's that word again, good. Now look in Jeremiah 29:11, he says, I know my thoughts toward you. They're good and not evil. You see that word good, whenever it's associated with God and he is involved in whatever's going on, he will bring good from it. And one of these days in the far distant future, it may take a while for us to understand. But one of these days we're going to see that the things that happened that we thought were so terrible brought us to the place that God wanted us to be. We know the story of Joseph. We know what he went through. Went to prison, falsely accused, everything in the world happened. And his brothers actually sold him into slavery and meant to do evil to him. Meant it for evil. But the man was faithful to God, and at the end, he inherited the kingdom. Or at least about a second in command or something. Just unbelievable. But anyway, God does not change. Genesis, he says what you meant for evil, he means for good. In Jeremiah, he says, I know my thoughts towards you, that they are good and not evil. But he said, for an expected end. Let me read that. I won't take but a second, and I want to read that. The way it's worded, I got it marked here, I think. But I thought that's really interesting. The way he says, Jeremiah 29:11. Let's see. It says, for I know the thoughts that I think towards you, saith the Lord, thoughts of peace, not of evil, to give you an expected end. Now that's what caught my attention. The end. And it's an end that he expects to happen. Sometimes we don't expect it, but everything that he's involved in, he has an end in mind, and it's always good. Always good. Now, we got a problem we have to deal with, and we've had it since the day we was born. We judge things on the basis of pleasure and pain. It's built into us, you know. If a little baby is wet, it's not pleasurable, he cries. Until you change him and get him happy, and then he laughs. Everything's based on pleasure and pain. When he's hungry, give him food, he's happy again. Well, we carry that on up into our adult life. And if we're not careful, we judge everything according to whether or not it's painful or whether or not it's pleasurable. And we always put God in the pleasurable place. Everything that's pleasing is from God. Well, the problem with that is you can enjoy sin for a season. You can find pleasure in sin for a season. But it's this expected end that we're working toward. That's what God is bringing us to. So, in pleasure and pain, if you had a big tumor on your arm and went to the doctor and he said, now we can remove that. It'll be sore for a while. After that, you'll have no more trouble with it. And you say, well, when you cut it open, that's going to hurt. See, you're judging things on pain. So if that hurts, I don't want to do it. Well, the end of that, you know, you could lose your arm. So, you know, everything can't be judged of whether or not it's painful or not, you know. A lot of situations, I've heard people say, you know, a situation that they was in, you know, if this had not happened to me, like I was talking about the prisoner, if this had not happened, then this good thing would not have happened. I've heard people say, well, I lost my job. You know, I needed that job so much. If you're faithful to God, if a man does shut a door, God will open another door because of the expected end that he's promised us. When God is involved, there may be some pain at the beginning, but he always judges things in an upwardly. Now, I'm talking about building a muscle, for instance. The way you build a muscle is you work out until that muscle breaks down. And you're sore for a while. You got pain. The next couple of days you do the same thing, and your arms are so sore. If you judged everything by pain, you'd quit. But eventually that muscle is going to be built to the place to where it will stand the strain. The pain will be gone. And you end up with a stronger muscle. Now that's all, you know, it sounds like children's church, really. You understand all of that. Well, I'm going to get into something now. Listen to this. God's plan is always an upward progression. To progress or prosper. Now, I know that you've heard prosperity teachers and preachers. And it's not all lies. I mean, God does want you to prosper. But the problem is they don't take it to the very end. The word prosper came from an old word they used when they're sailing ships. Sailors used it. They would go to the left into the wind. The wind would be coming this way, and they'd go to the left, and then they'd switch, and they'd go to the right. They'd go to the left. Well, they're moving a lot, but they're only moving forward a few feet at a time, see. That's called prospering. You can prosper against the wind if you use the wind in your favor. That's what prosper, that's where the word came from. But we are built or created with a free will. God gave us a most powerful gift that you can imagine. He gave us independent thought and action. You have a right to think what you want to think. And you have a right to do what you want to do. Now, we're governed by laws, and there's certain things law will not allow you to do. But you still have the freedom of independent thought and action. But now, I haven't forgotten about using the devil. Here's the progression. If you don't have free will, if you don't have an independent thought or action, if you're not free to do whatever you want to do, you have no choices. If you have no choices, there's no freedom. And we cannot choose good if we're not aware of evil. It all fits together. If there's no devil, there's no evil. Right? If there's no evil, there's no resistance. There's no resistance, there's no battle. If there's no battle, there's no victory. See how the devil is being used? And it says, if there's no victory, there's no faith. Here's the victory that overcomes the world, even our faith. John 1, that's 1 John 5. If you don't have faith, there's no overcoming. That's the faith that overcomes. And with no overcoming, there's no kingdom. That's the progression. And that's the way God prospers us through life constantly. And that's the way that no matter what happens in our life, that if we will keep our mind on God and look for that end that He has planned, eventually you'll get to the point where you'll be glad that you went through that thing. Now, it don't sound good while you're in it, but there'll be a day when you'll be glad. Now, I want to read this. Let me just read one more thing. I thought about reading all these things, but I can't do that. I don't want to take up all the time. Overcoming. Revelation, let's see. We'll start with 21. Yeah, 21:7. Look what it says. He that overcometh shall inherit all things. And I will be his God, and he shall be my son. Now, he's not talking about Jesus, though. He's talking about us. He's talking about us being equal heirs of God. But that's the reason we go through this process, to get to the bottom line. No overcoming, no kingdom. A kingdom is waiting, but we have to be trained to rule. And the devil is used as part of that training. And all we have to do is know the difference. All we have to do is keep our faith in God, and we'll come through on the other side. With the thought of God applied, it'll all be good. Everything will be good. One more. He's talking to the church. Let me see. He's talking to, it's in the 3rd chapter of Revelation. And he says basically the same thing, but he says, to him that overcometh will I grant to sit with me in my throne, even as I also overcame, and am sit down with my Father in his throne. So that's where God is taking us. He's taken us to a place of judging everything by pleasure and pain, to a place to where we can accept anything that comes our way if we keep our mind and our heart on God. He will produce an expected end, and it's his end, not ours. We can't see the end most of the time. But everything he does is good. So if you're going through something now, later on down the line, right now you can't see anything good in it. You just can't see it. And some things I understand. Some things you may not see for years to come. I understand that. I don't want to just be throwing words out there like I don't know what I'm talking about, because there are things that come in our life that even to the point of death we may not understand why it happened. But in another world, in a spiritual world, those things that we go through has great value. Great value. I mean, the things that anybody that's persecuted, anybody that has won the battles, of faith, and the people that have come through on the other side, there is a kingdom waiting. A kingdom waiting. A kingdom waiting. And the devil is being used to train us. He don't amount to nothing. He don't amount to anything. He's being used, and he's kind of dumb. He don't even realize he's being used. He's being used to perfect the saints, to perfect the ones that are going to conquer him. And he don't even realize it. But Jesus said, he said, I give you power over your enemy. He said, don't you worry about him. It's these trials and these problems that we go through. That's where the weight is. That's where the value is. It's not the devil. He's not going to add anything to your life. But the problems that he brings into your life, God will cause them to turn out good. And I saw this progression in my mind. I thought, Scripture backs that up 100%. 100%. Look at Jesus' life. He said, he endured the suffering of the cross, looking forward to the glory that awaited him. We can say the same thing. We endure the sufferings of this life. We can look forward to the glory that awaits us. So if you're having hard times, you get God in your situation. And he'll make sure that the end turns out just right. And he's a good God, and it'll all be in your favor. Just another testimony to the love of God for his people. So I hope this morning, if you got problems and you're wondering what's going to happen, just remember, it's only God getting the man right. That's what he's doing.